Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Bash Show for the KFC T20 Big Bash League season 2011-2012. My name is Shura Taft. Of course, on this show, we discuss all things Big Bash. We're also going to get to some tweets from you guys at home. But first, allow me to introduce you to the man who will be joining me and giving his expert views on the Big Bash game. From The Age, it's Mr. Jesse Hogan. Welcome again, Jesse.
Hello, mate.
Now, round 7 is done and dusted. We now have an idea of who's making the finals. What are your thoughts on the last round of cricket we just saw?
Oh, it was pretty good. I was really happy to see Brisbane continuing their strong start to the season because I had pretty high hopes for them and they've run themselves pretty well up there. But their win was good to see, especially Chris Lynn hitting some form and Alistair McDermott sort of showing that, he's not just Craig's son, he's actually sort of starting to emerge in his own right. Look at some of the other games. Hobart, again, well served by Owe Shah and Travis Burt. And again, the Renegades, unfortunately, not able to capitalise on another great start from Brad Hodge and Aaron Finch. Then look, and it was amazing on that one day, you had 2 games coming down to the last ball of the match. And the Sydney Sixers game against the Perth Scorchers was an absolute ripper. It was, seeing Mitchell Starc get those 3 wickets in an over was one of the absolute highlights, I reckon. Fantastic finish there with the Sixers possibly getting a final if they manage to win in the semi-finals there. And then the Melbourne Stars, bowling being good again, and I think it confirmed the Adelaide Strikers, after a really, really strong start, being a really big disappointment.
Now, it has to be said that it's great for the game that it came down to the last round, that a couple of teams could make the finals. The makeup of the 4 wasn't solid until we knew the last result. And now we have the top 4, now we have the finalists, and I think it's probably going to be a pretty strong big final series.
Yeah, I think it's probably good news that good news for the Melbourne Stars that they got in there. When you look at the quality and depth of their squad, I think anything less than a qualification would have been a failure. So the fact they've got there, they still haven't played their best, especially with the bat. You've still got a few blokes out of form like Cameron White. George Bailey showed a bit in the last game, but I think they'll be quite a threat.
All right, we're going to get to some of the players who are playing well, as well as the tweets. But after round 7 of the Big Bash season, it's the Perth Scorchers who finish on top. A fantastic season from them. And unfortunately, it's the team that a lot of people thought would do very well. It's the Sydney Thunder who take the wooden spoon. Okay, we do it every week. Who's hot and who's not? This is about the performances of the players, the ones who are playing well and the ones who aren't quite up to their capabilities. And I have to ask you, Jesse Hogan, this week, after round 7, who is hot?
Oh, I think Mitch Starc, again, he was been there sort of in the test squad, did play in Perth. The selectors decided to rush him back, and 3 wickets in an over virtually killed the Scorchers' hopes, even though they got very close at the end. It was just thrilling to watch him. Aaron Finch, again, dominating for the Renegades. That was great to see. David Hussey, even though he hasn't got a really big score, he's virtually done everything but that in the Big Bash League, even doing well with the ball. But star performance of the week, I think it's got to go to Daniel Christian. He's very hyped. Got a big IPL deal, and you can see why on the strength of what happened in the last game. 75 off about 47, some huge hitting. It was really great to see. Now,
come on, we've slapped him all season. He's been not hot a whole lot of times, but Cameron White has finally made runs. In fact, he's hit his first boundary. He's hit his first 6.
I know it sounds silly sort of focusing on something like that, but, you've got to, when you're in a form slump as deep as he is, I think you've got to focus on any positives. And I guess that 1-6 he did hit against the Strikers that he hit straight, you sort of think, maybe that can be the start of some sort of revival. And he did get 28 in almost even time, so it is a start of hopefully something good.
You watch right here. He's going to be the one that wins the game for the Stars. You wait and see. He'll make a big innings. And who's not? Who's not performing at the moment?
Oh, it's got to be the Thunder. It's been sort of a bugbear of mine from the start. Their recruiting strategy was clear. They wanted a few big guns. I reckon they probably would have spent about 50% of their budget on 2 players, Gale and Warner. They took a risk on Warner because he obviously has played test duty, but I just couldn't understand the recruiting strategy. I don't actually blame the players, that involved, that haven't really performed to expectations, because a lot of them aren't even, first choice players from New South Wales or anyone else. I just think it was crazy to put so much stock in 3 blokes, in Warner, Gale, and then Doug Bollinger, who, his fitness isn't his strong point and didn't really stand up during the tournament. So I think next year they've really got to look at where their recruiting strategy lies. Like even some of the other blokes they did pick that have sort of domestic level experience, like Usman Khawaja and Luke Butterworth, aren't really suited to T20. So they're the massive disappointment for me, and I really think that they made a mistake from the start with their recruiting strategy. All
right, fair enough. Some pretty strong words there. Very good opinions from Jesse Hogan. Fair to say Sydney Thunder next year probably have some thinking to do. Now, each week we give you guys, the fans at home, the chance to tweet in any questions you might have for our resident expert, Jesse Hogan. Of course, remember, jump on Twitter and use the hashtag BigBashShow. Let's get to today's tweets. The first one is from @DSilburn, who says, Which team has been the biggest surprise this season? Jesse Hogan.
To me, it's the Sydney Sixers. You know, I have to admit I had them in the bottom two going into my expectations for the season. Really, they took the opposite approach to the Sydney Thunder. Instead of going for a few big names, they went for depth across the board. Got a lot of sort of players, that, not necessarily big names, guys like Ben Rohrer and Dominic Thornley, and they performed superbly well. Like 5 wins, they've equal top position. They've done really superbly well. A lot of depth, some great spin attack, and really, you think they would have been hurt by the loss of Patrick Cummins and Shane Watson to injury, and even Steve O'Keefe, who's the incumbent National 2020 spinner, to injury for most of the tournament. But they've just performed superbly well, and I think it's really great to see that sort of approach has been rewarded with a semi-final berth.
And probably a big chance to win the whole thing. So we'll see what happens with the Sixers. Yeah. Great question there. Our next tweet, I do like this one. This is coming in from @Josh Gerard, who says, I'm a moderately unattractive man who can bat a bit. Could I get a game for the Thunder? Surely, he says, surely.
Yeah, that's. I can see where he's coming from. I think that's. I think it's really unfair on the players. They did pick. Look, realistically, if the Thunder came and offered you a contract, of course you'd take it if you're a professional cricketer. It's no slight on the guys involved. Like I've read something that's saying Dan Smith said that if these players read often enough that they're no good, they'll start to believe it. And it's not the fault of the players involved. They're just trying to make a living and doing the best they can. A lot of them sort of really playing in club cricket a lot of the time. I still think a lot of the problem goes back to the strategy. It's fine to sort of fill out your squad with about maybe 3 or 4 sort of club level players who can really surprise in a tournament like this. But to have half your team made up with that, I don't think it was always doomed to fail.
No, fair enough. So @Josh Gerard, probably fair to say you're better off sticking to left arm around the garbage bin in the backyard. But thank you very much for your Twitter question. Make sure if you have any questions for Mr. Jesse Hogan, of course, the big finals coming up, any questions you might have about that or anything to do with the Big Bash, jump on Twitter and make sure you use the hashtag #BigBashShow. Well, that's it for another Big Bash show. Thanks again for Jesse for bringing along your opinions and views right there. We love it. Don't forget, there's only 3 games left, 3 big finals, it's fair to say. And the first semi-final is at the Furnace, the Perth Scorchers taking on the Melbourne Stars. That is at the Wacker tomorrow, January 21 at 5 p.m. That is local time, of course, 8 p.m. over here in the eastern states. It is going to be an absolute cracker, I reckon, Jesse.
It is. These are the 2 teams that I picked pre-tournament that I thought would be the final. Hasn't really worked out that way. So getting there 1 match from the end, I think probably the Perth Scorchers deserve to get there. But I've just got a sneaky feeling that even the Melbourne Stars have just done enough to get there and are coming right at the right time, and I reckon they might steal this one.
Well, we'll see if Warne can bowl on the old pace-friendly pitches over there at the Wacker. Now, the second big semi-final. This is going to be a huge one at a small ground as well. The Hobart Hurricanes are taking on the Sydney Sixers, Blundstone Arena. That's on Sunday, January 22. What do you feel about this game, Jesse?
Well, I'm probably being a bit sort of East Coast-centric here, but I actually also think that the Sixers can do well here. I mean, obviously you look at Hobart, they've been brilliantly served by Travis Burt and Noah Shah, but in the last 3 games they've conceded an average of about 190, their bowlers, and I just think eventually, similarly to what's happened with the Thunder and Gale, I don't think you'll be able to rely on Shah and Burt forever, and I think the Sixers might steal this one.
I've got Rana Naveed to take 6 wickets in that match. It's going to be huge. Now, make sure you get tickets. Tickets are on sale now for both finals, and they are selling very quickly. So if you want to get down to those games, because it's fair to say there, those grounds will fill up.
Absolutely.
And they will sell out. So get your tickets as soon as possible. Now, we do have one big final show left. That's on Australia Day. That's going to be a massive one. We're going to preview the big final. But we also have 2 in-depth previews of the semi-finals. Tomorrow's game will be up this afternoon, and then the second semi-finals preview will be up tomorrow. So make sure you get to the website, bigbash.com.au, to check out our in-depth previews of both games. And of course, if you want to tweet in any questions as well, make sure you get on Twitter and use the hashtag BigBashShow, and Jesse Hogan will try and answer your questions. But until then, enjoy the games. Good luck to your teams, whoever you support, and we'll see you next week.